We air live every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. My name is Marshall White. I'm your host today.
Because without the engine, we don't go anywhere. So we're going to check our transmission fluid. We're going to check all the bodily fluids in the engine first. So we'll head over there if you're ready, Marshall. Our battery. We're going to check all of our terminals for corrosion, and then we would check the water by popping these caps. As long as you can see water, basically you'll find a little dipstick kind of thing under these caps. As long as you can see water in those cells, you are going to be good to go. Next point of interest is going to be our transmission fluid. So we're going to check that just like any other dipstick you've ever used. You're just going to make sure that the fluid is in line. And we're going to do all this cold, by the way, folks. Don't ever do it with the engine running or warm. It's going to skew your findings. On this side, we've got another dipstick. This is our oil dipstick. We're going to check that, make sure that that's all up to date, or up to the proper levels. And then, believe it or not, one of the very important fluids is our washer fluid. That I really like for that is a 2-in-1 Rain-X. This is going to be, not only is it going to clean the windshield, it's got a little antifreeze in it for the winter time so that you can keep that windshield nice and clean. So while we're at the front here, we're also going to take a quick look at our wiper blades, talking about the windshield. So we want to make sure that that wiper blade is nice and supple. That's a nice new wiper blade. What you don't want, thank you Marshall, what you don't want is obviously any blade that's got any kind of damage to it. This is also, you can feel that that's a little drier than that other blade. You want to change your wiper blades probably once a year, really no matter what condition you think they're in. We would want to make sure that that windshield is clean. A squeegee will help with that process. Obviously that's a pretty tall windshield, so you're going to need to be able to reach the top of it, clean it effectively. And of course, the overall vehicle can always use a nice wash before we head out. This is a soft brush, but you're going to want to check your owner's manual. I know, for example, Newmar says that you have to use a lamb's wool mitt on their vehicle just for the clear coat protection. And a lot of vehicles now have acrylic windows, which require a special cleaner and special procedures. So just check your owner's manual. At any time, if you have any questions, check your owner's manual, or you can call us here at Guarantee, and we can probably tell you how that'll work out.
I think that's particularly important just because here in the Northwest, the volume of rain that comes down at one time, if you don't have a well-oiled machine, a well-operating wiper, that can cause some safety concerns, or at least scare the living daylights out of you. I think that's probably true across the country. When we get these deluges, we need to make sure the windshield wipers are working correctly. So what else do we got here, Dr. Q?
We're going to move on to tires. Tires probably being the second most important component. Obviously, if the engine is running but we have no tires, we're still not going anywhere. RV tires are a little different animal. Your tread life is almost never an issue with an RV tire. Obviously, these are brand new tires, but I'm just going to check my tread life. I can do it with my finger. I can do it with a penny. They make a fun little tool that tells you, but this is just a visual inspection. I'm also at this point looking for dry rot. So what I would be looking for is if there's any tread separation. I'm going to come down the sidewall here, see if there's any cracks, any crevices. Dry rot often starts right here at the rim line, and what happens is they sit so long, and then if they're exposed to the sun basically just removes all the moisture from the rubber. So the tire looks good to me. Visual inspection, it passes the visual inspection. If you're ever concerned about the age of your tires, find your DOT number. And these 4-digit numbers here are going to tell you a lot of information about when it was built. The first 2 digits, 47, tells us it's built in the 47th week. The second 2 digits, 15, tell us it's built in 2015. So this tire is less than a year old. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to check our pressure.
I also hear that sometimes that can be on the inside, and so I suppose if you ever have a question, maybe you've bought in a used motorhome, and this is just stuff I've heard, Quinn. I don't know if this is accurate, but if you've bought a used motorhome, you would want to take the time to try and figure out the age of the tires and sometimes that DOT number can be on the inside of the tire. You might have to get down on the ground and take a peek, but an RV tire, like you said, the tread isn't usually the issue, tread life, like it would be on a passenger vehicle. It's much more the age of the tire, and if that sucker blows, a big Class A, you just have to be mindful of the age of the tire, because that's what's going to age out first, not the tread life.
Absolutely correct. You're probably looking 5 to 7 years at best on an RV tire.
Okay.
And you're right, you do not want to blow out. They wreak havoc. The maximum pressure is going to be listed on the tire, so we're going to find the maximum pressure. This tire is about 120 pounds maximum pressure. So we're going to take our little handy digital goodie here, got a little light on it, fun little. So we're running 92 pounds. Now, I said 120 was the max, and we're running at 92. We would go in and we would verify. There's a sticker by the driver's compartment that's going to tell us what the manufacturer's recommended pressure for these tires are, and that's what you go with. Don't necessarily fill them up to 120 pounds. That may be a little too rough a ride for you, but always go by the sticker on the inside of the vehicle.
That's fantastic. Thanks for the advice, Dr. Q. Shameless pitch. We do carry all sorts of motorhome tires at Guarantee RV Supercenters via our RV Travel Center. If you have any questions about the age of the tire, the condition of the tire, or if you already know you need a replacement, feel free to come on down, price it out, see if Guarantee would be a good choice for you to get your next RV tires. I want to remind the audience as well that we've got a contest going on right now, so please ask us any questions that you have and be entered to win a Guaranteed prize pack. I also like to take this time to remind folks we air every Friday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, so if you want to see part 2 of the pre-trip check for an RV before you hit the road, come on back next week and we'll close it out on the interior. Right now we're going over the exterior. Thus far we've gone through 3 different pre-trip checks: wiper blades, tires, and fluids for the engine and for the other accessories in the engine compartment. And next we're going to move on to...
Actually, I believe we're going to just move back to this rear tire back here. Or the batteries first in line. Let's see. Yep, we're going rear tire. Okay, so I've got a little more traditional air gauge here. So the beauty of this one is the chuck is designed to allow you to access the inside dual. That's what this guy does right here. So traditional air chuck, inside dual. So on this particular tire, pretty easy to get in on the outside. But sometimes you have to actually reach in and grab that rear dual valve stem, and that's what this is designed for. Thor has been nice to us on this beautiful Miramar to actually give us a valve stem extender right there, so I don't have to go through all of that. This tire is probably going to be at the same pressure as the first tire, but we can check that real quick. Real easy peasy. And so we are, again, running about 92 pounds. That leads me to believe that that's probably pretty close to the manufacturer's recommended pressure on this vehicle. All right, so moving on. We're going to check the batteries next, Marshall.
Okay.
So again, it's basically a visual inspection. I'm looking for corrosion. I'm looking for water level. We'll take an opportunity to pull one of these cells. You can see the water in there. As long as you can see water at the top, you are good. I would use distilled water if you need to fill them up. Don't overfill them. You can actually change the ratio in the cells a little bit. And then check each cell individually. Generally, if you've boiled a battery, it's going to have boiled all the cells, but better safe than sorry. So those batteries look just fine to me. And as we go around, we're also taking just a cursory visual inspection. I'm making sure all my doors are closed. All vehicles with bay doors, you can run the chance of them opening up on you. The next thing we're going to do is check the tail lights.
So the way I've done this in the past is I have my wife inside and she's hitting the brake and I'm just making sure that the hazard lights are working correctly. Left blinker, right blinker, backup lights is also worthwhile, and then finally headlights. I believe our graphics are showing on air right now.
Just
so
tail lights, but yeah, it'll give you the basic idea. You're right. You just want somebody to depress the pedal, run the lights for you. It's a ticket and it's for safety. You want other people to know what you're doing. Basically, if you don't have brake lights, you run the risk of having somebody rear end you, and that's going to ruin your trip.
Well worth the time just to make sure that you're safe before you hit the open highway. Here's another bay door.
Yep.
I'm just going to make sure that that's tight.
And in fact, that gives me one second here, Marshall. When we were talking about the engine, well, that's the exhaust for the generator. I thought the generator was in there. But when we were talking about the engine fluid, you also want to take that opportunity to check your generator oil.
Generator oil, another good exterior trip check. Thank you very much for that advice. Is there an easy way to determine if the if the latch is or the bay door is going to come open?
Well, all you're really doing is giving it a, see how that, did you see that? I don't know if we caught that on camera, but that latch changed its position ever so slightly when I pushed on that door. So that latch was just kicked open a little bit. I pushed on the door, it closed. It's kind of difficult to see it in the latch, but if you see the latch respond, it was a good idea to push on that door. But that's all you're doing, is just making sure that the door's not coming open. You can grab them from the bottom, but as long as they stay closed, you're good. And then, talking about bay doors, we're going to go to this last bay door here, and we're going to look at the propane section. So this is basically going to be our last point of interest exterior. Almost all underbody tanks or frame-mounted tanks are going to have their own little sight gauge on them. You're never going to run more than 3/4 full. That's the way a propane tank works. You're at about 80% of its capacity, so you're pulling vapor and you're not pulling liquid propane into the system. This one has got a little electronic information sent to the inside of the vehicle, so I'm sure that when we do the interior, we'll check this on the monitor panel also. This one's empty. We're inside. The fire marshal says you can't have any propane in this if we're inside. But there's also a couple other little ways. Dometic makes this cool little goodie. You just literally rub it down the tank and it beeps when it gets to the level of propane. And then our friends at Tire Minder have come out. This is brand new for this year. This thing is really cool. You can set it to your Bluetooth so that your smartphone talks to it, and you can check it from inside. You can check it from home. As long as you have a connection to that guy right there, it'll tell you where your propane level is. We've checked on all of our vital components. Obviously, if you see anything that needs repair as you go along, you should do that now. But we've done our visual inspection. It's not a real in-depth inspection. We aren't mechanics. We're just making sure that we've done everything we can to prevent any kind of disaster or catastrophe so that we have a great trip like we always do in our beautiful, lovely Miramar RV here.
So the Guarantee pre-trip checklist here for the Northwest, customized for the Northwest. First and foremost, check your wipers. Make sure they're not damaged in any way. Get them replaced. Obviously, the bodily fluids of the engine and the transmission and the wiper fluid and the radiator fluid. You know, want to make sure those are checked. Check all your compartments. Make sure your awning is in, your steps are operating correctly and coming in. Check all your compartment doors. Tires, probably the single most important thing we talked about this morning, tires. Make sure that they're not aged out. Check that DOT label that it's not 7 years old or has some sort of mildew or checking near the rim on the sidewall of the tire. We checked our house batteries, that there was no corrosion on that or the engine compartment battery. We also double checked all our hazard lights, headlights, brake lights, and so forth. So I think that's a pretty complete exterior checklist. Next week we'll come back and do the interior checklist, checking fluid levels and whatnot, and make sure we're not leaving with a full black tank or gray tank. So join us next week. We really appreciate you joining us for this particular live stream. We will be back next Friday, 9 a.m. So join us then. For all of us at Guarantee, thank you for watching. We're going to also invite you one last time to enter the contest. Get a Guarantee prize pack if you do share this before we get off the air. Thank you again. See you next week. Bye-bye.